Hey, it's Keith from Outlaw Speed Shop, and welcome to this episode where I tackle a Silhouette, an original Hot Wheels production car from the Sweet 16, I guess you could say. I've got a few of them, so I'm honestly not too concerned if I screw it up. I'm just kind of going through and looking for the one I'm going to tackle. I ended up ordering a windshield, so not that I ended up needing it, but I'm just trying to figure out which one I want to work with. As always, if you like what you see, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell. Yeah, I got three of them. I have a ton of actual old vintage Hot Wheels from 68, 69, 70. I'm not a huge fan of like the Sweet 16. I like the Charger, the Barracuda. And that's about it. I'm more of a spoiler series person, but I do have quite a few. So I picked the one that I'm going to work with. And the older ones, obviously, you have to dimple the actual rivet because it's flat, unlike the newer ones that have a recess in them. So trying to get those as centered as possible is pretty crucial on doing these. And there's a lot of guys that do these, so I'm not going to bore you with all the rigmarole. But this was actually built off or modeled off of a real vehicle. It was originally built, I want to say 63, I think. I read this a while ago, so forgive me if I'm wrong. 62, 63, and I believe it had a Buick. I think it had a Buick motor. It was on a Buick frame. And then it got redone later on with a Ford. I think they put like a big block 429 or 428, something in there. Put some slotted aluminum rims on it, and it made the show circuit for a while. So, that part of it's kind of cool. It's reminiscent of an Ed Roth style build, which is cool, but it wasn't Ed Roth who built this one. So anyways, after you drill and take it apart, this has, obviously the top piece, the interior, and the bubble windshield. The bubble windshield actually has little tabs that stick into the interior, which obviously it was sealed, so the interior is in excellent shape. And then the motor and the side pieces pop out as one piece, and that kind of completes the set. Overall, this is in pretty decent shape. This was actually a kid's because, like most of the ones I got from one collection, kid had put his name on it, or his initials, excuse me, which I think is kind of cool. I like the history behind, and that's why I'm not a huge fan of redoing these. I think I like the history behind them. I like to imagine what happened. A kid back in 74, 75 was maybe, or even earlier, was playing with this and had a lot of enjoyment, and here I am screwing up those memories, but to each their own. So anyways, after it went through the citrus strip, the stuff came off real easy. The entire car is painted the same color, so I have to do the chassis and obviously, strip everything and clean it all. I left the wheels on because I'm going to be replacing them. One of them actually fell off in the citrus strip. So after it's been thoroughly cleaned and wire brushed, then it's just polishing. A little polishing, and then when you're done, you polish some more. And then when you think you're done, polish some more. Because obviously the shinier you get it with the Spectraflame style paint, the better the overall appearance is going to look. So, believe it or not, I actually got a package in from Super Clean. I have no idea why. They said they wanted to send me some stuff to try out for degreasers, and I'm using a degreaser here, so I figured I'd give it a shot, and it degreased. That's the most I can say. I actually just started a detailing business finally after 3-4 years of hemming and hawing about it. And I've used it on regular cars like brake dust and everything else. And it actually does really work well. So kudos to them and thank you. Make sure you check them out. But anyways, after you've polished, you have to really get in there and get all the polish out and the residue. And this stuff worked really, really well. And because no matter how clean it looks, you'll actually get some black residue from the polish, and that would prevent any kind of paint adhesion. So the cleaner you can get it, the better your paint process will go. Paint's only going to be as good as the substrate you put it on. So, thoroughly clean it. I let it sit overnight, actually, to really dry. I've got a bunch of wheels. So on these are bearing style wheels, and you use the small and the mediums. So here I am kind of going through looking to see what I have, what I need. One of my other builds that I haven't released a video for, I actually needed the small wheels, the medium wheels, so I actually had two kicking around. because I needed 2 for the front wheels or something else. So it worked out pretty well. And the bearings themselves, the wheels, to get those off, you just pretty much clip in half and then in half again without touching the bearing, and everything just kind of falls apart. It's pretty easy to do. That way you're not damaging anything on the bearing itself. Now, this being one of my first Sweet 16s and red line stuff, I'm going about it a certain way because I have to paint the chassis. I'm just going to paint right over the bearings. It didn't have any issues on anything. So I'm using blue because I like blue. I don't really... This model, I think this was one of the ones that they made like 8 million of them. So there's no value to this vehicle. This is just something that I wanted to try. So I'm mixing this with 3 parts of paint. I'll have 3 parts of reducer and 1 part hardener. The hardener and the reducer are kind of optional. I find that it works well for me, and it helps the paint cure a little bit faster with the hardener. And I don't have to put a clear coat on, which works out real well. I mean, I've done some Spectra Flame style paints and put a clear on afterward. The clear tends to, on occasion, depends on the color, it seems to make it just a little bit darker sometimes if you're not careful. So in this case, I did not have to use a clear, and I did not want to use a clear, so it worked out well. The reducer just helps it really go through the brush, no problem. And not that there's really that much of an issue to begin with. So obviously this is something where I have to paint everything. So I'm going to start with the chassis. Pretty much just going to mist it on. Not that I hate when I do these videos. I hate when I show this part of the video because it always looks like I'm just soaking the shit out of it, and I'm not. It's just the angle, and I'm just barely putting it on. So what this is more of it. And then my booth's on the way out. The button keeps screwing up. This is just a tack coat, and what it does is if you put it on too heavy right off the bat, it's just going to run. So this just works out where you have a little bit of a tack coat, and then you just go back, and subsequent layers of paint you just put on, evenly but heavier. And depending upon what color paint, the more you put on, the darker it'll get. So you just have to go until what you think looks pretty good. Blue, there really didn't seem to be an issue. So again, the Spectra Flame paint goes on so nice. It's really hard to screw up unless you put it on too heavy and it runs. But to be honest with you, I put it on pretty heavy after the first layer, and I've never run this paint. So and I'm pretty good at making runs. So excuse me. So anyways, that's the process. Real easy to do. If you've never sprayed any kind of, whether it be Bright Vision or the Red Line Shop, I recommend both. Please try it because you'll love it after. Depends what you've been using, but it's a breeze. So obviously the plastic that came with it, the chrome was kind of pitted. There was some black areas that the chrome plating had worn off. So I'm using a combination of pens from Molotov and chroming it myself. And that way it's all consistent all the way across, and there's no weird areas where it looks dull. And I've got a thin one, and I don't know the sizes. I apologize, but I have a thick and a thin. That's pretty much how I call it. Thin gets in certain spots, and the thick obviously works for the rest. So now it's really, once it's painted, I let it dry for a day. I probably didn't have to. It was almost dry the same day, within a couple hours. But I like to paint at night, so it works out well. And I let it sit overnight. In the morning, I get up, or the next day when I get out of work, and I can handle it and do whatever I want. I'm sure you've seen 1,000 videos of people putting wheels on. The Red Line Shop has a little tool that you can use that kind of sits over the axle, and you can use that to push the wheels on, and it keeps the axles from bending. Or if the axles are bent, you can use it to straighten them. I've always been hesitant to get it, but I had won a gift certificate from Paul over at Diecast Graveyard, and amongst the decals and engines and hoods and windows and all kinds of crap that I bought, I also got finally one of those tools, and I'm surprised I've made it this long without it. So it's awesome. Highly recommend it. So even though I have a brand new window, the window that I got is very clear, and maybe with a very, very light tint of green. The one that I took out, the original one, is almost got a smoke tint to it. It's not heavy, but I wanted to try to keep it. So what I'm doing is I'm going over it with some 400 grit sandpaper, and then I'm going to hit it with some 800 grit sandpaper, and then I'm going to this was more of an experiment because I didn't care, because I have another window, a brand new one. But you can be pretty aggressive on these, as long as whatever you start with, you subsequently go to a higher number. So if you start with 400, go 6, 8, 12. If you start with 320, then you probably have to put a little bit more work into it. Depends on how deep your scratches are. But I did it, and I polished it, and I put it in the gauzy, which I lost that footage. I apologize. But I wanted to retain the original one because it has those little tabs that you can't see. Tried different camera angles because I get my balls busted constantly for my hands being in the way, and apparently this did nothing. But, it is what it is. If you watch me enough, you're used to seeing my frickin' hands. So this is what I started with. A very well played with vehicle. And this is what I ended up with. I've got a couple of videos. The window's still scratched. I'm probably going to end up just swapping it out, but I kind of like the tinted part of it. So anyways, I hope you like it. I'll catch you on the next one.